tens of thousands of miles, more than 20,000 miles actually, control of the SES-22 spacecraft for its commissioning and post-launch operations. Now back live with a full screen of Pad 40 of the Falcon 9 rocket, 9 minutes from liftoff, now with the SES-22 satellite from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Seconds, the booster, the first stage on today's mission, is a relatively young member of SpaceX's inventory of reusable boosters. It's booster number 1073, and it made its first flight back on May the 14th, carrying a batch of Starlink internet satellites into orbit, and is ready for its second flight today, 46 days later, with the SES-22 communications satellite. So this is a relatively young member of SpaceX's fleet of reusable Falcon 9s, and is again targeting a landing to come back to the port for for
engine chill. Stage 1 RP1 load complete.
T-minus 5 minutes and 40 seconds. One of the major milestones a few moments ago was the start of chill down on the first stage engines. This marks the time when those engines begin to be thermally conditioned for ignition by flowing small amounts of propellants through the plumbing into that propulsion system. We've also heard a call out in the past few moments that the first stage has been fully loaded with kerosene fuel. So both stages of the Falcon 9 are now full of fuel. This rocket-grade kerosene will fuel the Merlin engines on the first and second stages of the Falcon 9 for this evening's mission. In total, about 46,000 gallons of kerosene has been loaded into the Falcon 9. Liquid oxygen continues to flow right now into both stages, and that will be terminated at about 2 minutes before liftoff.
Strong back retract.
The strongback structure that you see to the right of the Falcon 9 in this view has begun its retraction to an angle of about 1.5 degrees from the Falcon 9. This begins with the opening of clamps at the top of that strongback that reach around the upper stage of the Falcon. And then the gantry strongback begins its retraction. And if you look closely, you can see that movement underway at pad 40. Now inside of 3 minutes, 2 minutes and 35 seconds remaining until liftoff. This mission will be heading east from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station to place the SCS-22 communications satellite into a geostationary transfer orbit. This mission, this spacecraft, was built by Thales Alenia Space. It weighs about 3.5 metric tons, or about 7,700 pounds. And the Falcon 9 will send it well on its way toward an orbit, an operating orbit, about 22,000 miles over the equator. This spacecraft will be operating for about 15 years, providing C-band, cable TV, and radio broadcast services over the United States. 2 minutes until launch now. The Falcon 9 should be fully loaded with the oxidizer and kerosene fuel at this time, about 1 million pounds of propellants on board for tonight's mission. And we've heard confirmation that the Stage 2 liquid oxygen load is complete. We heard a few moments ago that Stage 1 was also full. So confirmation the Falcon 9 is fully loaded with propellant for liftoff in 1 minute and 26 seconds. T-minus 60 seconds. The Falcon 9 is now in startup mode. The onboard computer now in control of all the countdown functions. T-minus 45 seconds. T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 10 seconds. T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition. And liftoff of SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying the SCS-22 communications satellite toward geostationary orbit on a mission to provide TV broadcast services over the United States. Now T plus 90 seconds, the Falcon 9 has faded from view through the cloud cover here at Cape Canaveral, Florida, and is now pitching downrange. We're switching over to SpaceX's feed, which I'll caution you comes with a bit of a delay, about a 20-second or so delay in this feed from SpaceX from an onboard camera looking aft or toward the rear, back toward Earth as the Falcon 9 heads downrange, heading east out over the Atlantic Ocean. Good engine performance reported so far from SpaceX, and the trajectory is reported to be nominal as well. And we've seen confirmation now of stage separation. On the left-hand side of your screen, the first stage has extended its grid fins. And on the right, the upper stage engine is firing to place the SES-22 spacecraft into a preliminary parking orbit. And there's confirmation now of fairing separation now that the upper stage is in orbit, or in space rather, on the way to orbit. That payload fairing has jettisoned in two halves. The fairing will come back to Earth under parachutes and will be recovered from the ocean with SpaceX recovery boats. Now more than 5 minutes since launch, continuing to watch a split screen from SpaceX. Again, this is coming with a delay of about 25 seconds or so. Two onboard cameras on the first stage of the Falcon 9. On the left, you're looking toward the rear of that booster with those 4 titanium grid fins extended to aid in the descent. On the right, the Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine on stage 2 glowing red hot. This is normal as it fires with more than 200,000 pounds of thrust to place this SES-22 spacecraft into a parking orbit. And now we see visual confirmation of the entry burn on the left-hand side of your screen. 3 Merlin engines firing to slow down the rocket. You can see the velocity meter in the lower left-hand part of your screen decreasing. And this is to slow down the booster as it enters the lower, thicker layers of the atmosphere. And there's entry burn shutdown. And those coal gas thrusters pulsing to help control the orientation of the booster as it heads down deeper into the atmosphere. It'll be passing through another period of maximum dynamic pressure on the way in, and will be going subsonic just before it ignites its center engine for a landing burn. We've heard verbal confirmation from SpaceX's launch team that the upper stage has completed its burn to place SES-22 into a parking orbit. And now on the left-hand side of your screen, you're watching an onboard camera view of the first stage booster coming through the clouds, heading for the drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas, that drone ship now in view. That center engine throttling to control the descent rate. And there is a bullseye landing for booster 1073, completing its second trip to space. After a good landing on the drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas, parked about 400 miles east of Cape Canaveral. You're now watching views from the upper stage, which is now in its on-target preliminary parking orbit at an altitude of about 167 kilometers and a velocity of nearly 27,000 kilometers per hour. And this upper stage will be coasting in this parking orbit until T plus 27 minutes approximately, when it will reignite for about a minute-long burn to send SES-22 into a higher orbit, an elliptical geostationary transfer orbit. That burn will last again about a minute and do a lot of orbit raising for the satellite toward its operating altitude of 22,000 miles or nearly 36,000 kilometers.